If you went through the records of the U.S. Census Bureau, not something I think you would do, but if you looked for names, you would find some interesting names. Someone actually named their baby Banana. Someone else thought the name Fever would be a good name for their child. There's a kid walking around somewhere with the name hashtag, and someone decided to call their kid Lunch. Now, twins aren't immune either. Well, first of all, I did not check to see if this one was in the U.S. Census Bureau, but a woman I used to work with says her dad swears that there was this kid, this family he worked with, whose last name was P-I-G-G, pig, which is fine, until they named their daughter Ima. Sometimes you wonder what's going on up there, right? Because you have to be careful when you're naming names for twins as well. One mom and dad thought it would be fine to name their twins this one and that one. And someone thought it would be just great to name their twin daughters, Catherine with a K and Catherine with a C. What could go wrong? I mean, again, one has to wonder, right? I mean, sometimes people are not at their best when picking out names. But names are important, both our official names and the other names we use for ourselves, for each other, and for God. One, the names we use for each other. How we address one another can deepen a connection to that person or harm a relationship. How many people still walk around with some nickname that they never really liked? And some couples have kind of pet names for each other that they actually do like. Two, the names we use for God affect how we think of God, how we pray, and how we will experience God in our regular daily living. And three, and this will be the focus of today, the names we use for ourselves affect us in more ways than we realize. So, how do you speak about yourself to yourself? Do you ever use any names for yourself? And I mean, not that necessarily out loud, but how do you speak to yourself about yourself? Some people go through life telling themselves, I am perfect in every way. No, of course. More of us, however, I think, carry around that hurtful name that someone gave us as a child. We were told that we were stupid, ugly, worthless. We were somehow led to believe that we weren't worthy of being protected, that we were unlovable. And here's what happens at some point, and maybe at stressful moments, we use those names on ourselves. We don't need anyone else to call ourselves those names. And again, it really matters the names we use for ourselves, how we speak about ourselves to ourselves. Now, today's first reading, we hear that God chooses Cyrus, this least likely character, this Persian ruler, this pagan, and the scriptures say that God said to him, I have called you by name, giving you a title, though you knew me not. Now, And I love that it was one of the least likely people to think of. The point here, in part, is that is the same thing that God does with us. I have called you by name, says God to each of us. You. And what name or names do you think God uses for you? To help answer that, I'll invite you to a little reflection, a little experience. I will suggest names that God might have for you and invite you to hear them in the quiet of your heart. Now, I know that some people find it easier than others to use imagination. I invite you to go for it if you would. There's plenty of things to be distracting or make it difficult, but again, I encourage you to go with it if you could, and to hear what God might have for you through my words or in spite of them. And if it helps you just to think about it instead of imagining it, go for it. Seriously, whatever. So here's how we'll do it. Before each name, I'll say a word about that name. There will be a several second pause each time, so you can just kind of take that in for a moment. I know that some people find it helpful to close their eyes when trying to use imagination. If that helps you, go for it. If you already tend to fall asleep when I preach, I'd encourage you to skip that part. And at this time, I invite you to take a few good deep breaths. Many people find it helpful to breathe in through their nose and out through their mouths. And as you're taking those deep breaths, first just become aware of having a body, of being alive, of being you. First, think of this. What's one of the names a family member or friend has ever called you that you like? If you have one, now in the quiet of your heart, let God speak that name to you. Two, sometimes we carry the burden of the hurtful names we heard growing up. You're fat, you're stupid, you won't amount to much, whatever. If you ever heard something like that, hear God tell you this: no, you are beautiful. As you are, you are. And you are good. You are good. Next, sometimes the world can feel like a very scary place. You're not sure you can handle it. And God says, you are resourceful, and you have in you already what you need, and to be able to find what else you need. You are safe. It's in you and around you. You are safe. You are. Sometimes you might feel trapped by your weakness or brokenness, ashamed of your sin or unworthy of love. If any of that is in you, God says to you, You are my beloved. I love you as you are. As you are. More than you could ever know. Sometimes you might feel alone in what you face, or that no one has time for you. Listen, as God calls you, my friend, my friend. Finally, is there another name that you think God might want to say to you? Let God speak what you think might be on God's heart to say to you now. As you are ready, if you closed your eyes, I invite you to open them now. If someone near you is snoring, you might want to give them a gentle nudge. And I know that some people find it easier than others to use imagination in prayer. If you found that difficult or you fall asleep, it's fine. It's still true. Names matter. And God has called you by name. And those names God called you, you might go back to them from time to time. Remember them, cling to them, because those names I just gave are true. Because to God, you are beautiful, resourceful, safe, good. You are truly beloved of God.